So, it's a true story out of the Philippines why I get upset about men not doing anything, right? You saw it's happening in America. It's a widespread problem in the Philippines. So when I first got here, I had a store. And when I was sitting in the store, I hear all kinds of noise and commotion. I see a crowd just run outside. So I step outside and I see three girls beating up one. It's a bunch of hell no. So I put a stop to the fight because I've seen enough YouTube videos. I've seen enough news articles to know what happens when you don't engage. And she was losing the fight bad, and I don't want her to get hurt or lose her life. The problem is what happened afterwards with you Filipino males. Now, after the fight, I had a lot of men get mad at me, said it wasn't my business, don't stop the fight. And like I told them, you weren't a man 5 minutes ago, don't try to be one now. If you can't man up to stop a woman from being fight, how are you going to handle me? Well, one of the store owners across the street kept mouthing off, and I had to put him in his place. It was a little tiny place, and I had to remind him. So I went out in the street, since everybody had a little attitude. I said, hey, every one of you I saw at church, every one of you says you're going to be just like Jesus. What did Jesus do when a girl got stoned? He put a stop to it. He engaged. So all y'all men that are mad at me for stopping that damn fight, you're against the word of God. And it got real quiet on that street. Ooh, did it get quiet. They knew I was right, and they knew that I was wrong. A lot of it's bad parenting. But see, it just didn't stop there. Second instance, right? We had a landlord and a landlady, and their son was friends with the apartment next to me. So the way the apartments looked was, I had an apartment that had a door on one side, and their apartment was right next to me. My apartment went left, their apartment went right. So one time I hear her getting beat, and she's just beating hard. Wasn't screaming for help, too dumb to scream for help. Apparently she was used to it. So I go look in their door. There was just a screen door, but you can clearly see, and he's raising his fist. I was a bunch of hell no. I put a stop to it. I scolded him out, and he wanted to fight me. Like I told him, you come bring some. Come get you some. Come get you some. And he was a tall for a Filipino, but he weighed like $110. Yeah, come get you some. Right? Well, the landlord got mad at me and says, just don't mind him, walk away. And I said, what would Jesus do? Once again, got real quiet. They didn't think. It's not okay to let a woman get beat. And anybody tells you it's okay to get beat, they're not speaking through the word of God. They're speaking through the devil. That's why bad things keep happening to y'all. Because you're not using the word of God. You're not doing God's commandments. You're too busy listening to stupidity. And it was stupid. I got mad at my wife one time. She'll tell you this. So we're sitting on a bus. And apparently a couple of seats in front of us, a group of robbers sit next to a girl. One sits behind her, one sat next to her on a bus. And they're pulling her hair, and they're trying to bully her. And they end up taking her phone. My wife saw the whole thing and didn't tell me. My wife got a butt chewing for it. Didn't tell me. I would have put a stop to it. And she asked the girl, why didn't you say anything? Because she was being intimidated. The girl was like a little bit older, maybe in her 50s, real skinny. And I remember what the men looked like. They're a little bit, average Filipinos. Why didn't you tell me? You know how I am. I could have stopped at that, put her phone back. We could have got 3 bad guys off the street. She wasn't exempt from my butt chewing. Right? So, another instance where there wasn't a lot of males. I had a neighbor live next door to me. And it wasn't the neighbor, it was a friend. And so there's this girl over there, and I hear all kinds of screaming, all kinds of crying. So I go peek out, same thing. Their apartment goes right, mine goes left. And so when I looked in, I see a girl being punched in the face by an older woman. I think the girl was like 9, and the woman was like 30-something. And her head hit the cement like this hard and bounced. And I saw her eyes look like she got an instant concussion. So I went in, put my body between hers, and I made for sure that the girl went to safety, right? And she ended up going down the street to get her mom. But all my neighbors outside watched what happened. All the neighbors from the second floor. So I got 3 apartments down here, including mine, 3 on top. But on the side, we got more neighbors. So all the neighbors heard and saw it. And I said, hey, could somebody call the cops? I got to stay here. I don't got my phone on me. Could you please help? Nobody called the cops. Nobody cared about that little girl. Nobody. So I chewed all the men out upstairs. I chewed all the women. I said, that could be your kid getting beat. What would you do if you found out your kid got beat and nobody did nothing? When again, who in here obeyed Jesus' commandments? None of y'all. None of y'all, because you had no love for your neighbor. None. So you guys are too busy living by rules of rap. Back in the 90s, they say, don't, snitches get stitches. No, that's not the case. See, if you say something to begin with, and you interject to begin with, your neighbor would be nice, and there'd be no reason to snitch. But when you don't snitch, your neighbor gets worse and worse and worse, and eventually crime gets to you because you didn't think. Because you weren't living by God's laws, you're living by stupidity. Stupid stuff. That's what gets you hurt and killed. If you're that afraid of a neighbor, then you probably should have done something. And the other neighbor should have done something. That's why I do the videos. And I say, hey, there's no men. There is no men. How could there be men? The 3 idiots that day that tried to rob my camera, my neighbors in front of me, they weren't men. Little boys that drink all the damn time. That's their whole life. They drink, they do karaoke. They act stupid. They don't think. You don't watch crime happen. Now, I'm not talking about some petty little crime. I'm not talking about, like if you go to Walmart, you see a woman holding a kid, and she's just taking baby food. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about maybe is when she wipes off the whole dang counter. I understand there's certain instances maybe you don't interject. But when somebody's getting beat, little kids getting beat, you see somebody being attacked, and you're big enough to interfere. Because that could be you. That could be your family member, your sons, your daughters. So if I went around right now and asked everybody in the Philippines who loves Jesus, every one of you like, oh, I love Jesus. He's my best friend. We should be more like him. Catholic priests, we should be more like Jesus. Even though they changed the Bible, they did everything Jesus said not to. But then I ask you guys, why didn't you stop the girls from being kidnapped and sold into the sex trade? Why didn't you stop the Barron guy from being attacked? Why didn't you stop this from happening and a little kid from being beat? None of you would have an answer, a logical one. Long story short, that God took care of my old landlady because they got mad at me, asked me to leave because they thought I was the problem. He died. Apparently she died too. Now the house is up for rent. There's nobody living in it. So you go against God, you mess with God, you pay the consequences. Bottom line. So I expect you Filipino men to start being men, because I'm going to be out there watching, and if I see you not doing something with the crime, and once I interfere, I'm going to scold your little butts out like I always do. And just like I was in America, if I saw a bunch of people being attacked in a wheelchair, attacking somebody in a wheelchair, especially no weapons, and I see you standing around, once I beat their little butts, you're next on my damn line. I'm going to scold you out. Before you leave that day, I'm going to have it in your brain the rest of your life how stupid you were to do nothing. Because that could be you next time. That's what you don't think. You're more worried about yourself for the instance, but you're not worried about yourself for tomorrow. You have an oh well attitude. And that's stupid. And that stupidity needs to stop. It's time to grow up, and it's time for men to start being men again. Because if you're not going to be men, then stop going to church. Stop pretending.